Sondra Dubas, founder of Self-Care Bootcamp. My mission is to teach women how to practice soul-nourishing self-care consistently.
We have the fantastic, famous Sondra here with us. Sondra has had an amazing, and she's on an amazing journey, and she's going to share with us. She told me that she was a big hair girl when she was 3 or 4 years old. Her mother styled her with this big poofy, big hair girl look, like she told me. And then also in the 90s as well, she got married, same thing. So Sondra, welcome to our show. Tell us a little bit about that.
Hello. I'm honored to be here doing my favorite thing, which is connecting and talking with people and sharing my story. So yes, it's really ironic that I recently just found this picture of me as a little girl, and I just cracked up laughing when I saw it because yeah, my mom has my hair all styled up in like a big lady hairdo, and I'm wearing this very fashionable outfit. And I think I had a little parasol or something that I was holding. It was a very posed picture. And then yeah, same with my wedding picture. A lot of big, and it was my original hair. It was my hair that I took. I used to spend hours on my hair, literally the washing and the blow drying and the curling and the styling and all the things. And so it's very ironic that I'm on a very different journey as far as my hair is concerned now.
And I was just introduced to you, Sondra, by somebody very close to both of us, Tracy. We actually interviewed Tracy
Yes.
yesterday as well. We got to hear her journey and her journey of being a stylist to many different women with different types of hair loss. How did you meet Tracy?
Oh, Tracy, she's been such an angel to me and has truly become a very, very good friend. And I'm blessed that she's been on the journey of alopecia and my hair loss journey from the very beginning. And so my journey started, gosh, probably I was kind of going through figuring up like, okay, when did this all start? And it started shortly after the birth of my second daughter, who's about to turn 18. So it's amazing how time goes so fast. Like I didn't think it had been that long, but when I really thought about it, I've been on this journey for probably 17 years. And it started with, as it does for many women, with just, a small quarter size little patch of hair that was shiny and smooth. And it was like, oh, well, what is this? This is odd. And I thought I might have had some sort of, virus or fungus or something wrong with my skin. And I go to a dermatologist and they give me shots in the head and it grew back and it went away for a while. And then there'd be another spot and I went through that rhythm for a really long time, not ever really thinking anything of it. And over the years, it would progress, and sometimes the spots would get bigger or they would be in really awkward places that were harder to, style around. And so my first experience with Tracy was going in to just find some remedies for these little spots that would pop up. And I was actually digging back through some of my old wigs and hair, and I came across these tiny little, I don't know if you want me to show them, but these tiny little hair clip-ins. I mean, they've been sitting in a box for forever, but I would get these little clip-in pieces that I would have cut and colored to match my hair. And I would just, position them at different places to cover up the spots. And that was, Tracy was there to help me just figure out how to work around the style with these spots. And then over the course of time, the spots would become large patches. And I found that during very stressful times of my life, sometimes it would really take off. But then it would always grow back. And so there were periods of time where I went from having the small patches to having, like a very large bald patch. So then I graduated to doing hair toppers. And that was a great solution because I could just clip the hair toppers in and it would cover up all the spots on top and nobody knew. And, this went on for a decade, at least a decade of just navigating the small, patches of hair loss and maneuvering around them or wearing ponytails or changing my style or changing my part. And Tracy was there with me every step of the way, helping me find the products that I would have never anticipated would even have been out there for me. And, it helping me just be confident in covering up the spots. And I hid it for all of those years. I mean, I had very, very close friends that had no clue that I was going through this hair loss struggle until I reached a point where, and I really feel like it was right as I was kind of hormones changing, starting to head into menopause, and I hit this spot in time where the 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 little spots started linking together into big patches, and the big patches just kept spreading and spreading. And probably in the course of about 3 months, my hair just went on. I mean, it just fell out with a vengeance. And I remember being at this women's conference one weekend, and I was actually rooming with other women and having to maneuver and manage, the the hair pieces and everything through the course of being with these women at this conference. And I remember getting home. I had wore the hair pieces so much that weekend that it was putting a lot of tension on the hair that I had. And I remember getting home and finally being at that place where I had realized I don't have enough hair anymore to clip into. Like there's nothing to clip these toppers into anymore. And I like that was kind of like my rock bottom, because I was like, I can't go out of the house now. I can't wear my normal disguises. I could put a ball cap on and go out, but like to show up in my life in the normal ways that I needed to show up, I just I couldn't do it anymore. I was lost. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like these hair pieces that have always served me well are not working anymore. And so I remember Tracy connected me with another woman that had alopecia, and we met for coffee, and I cried a lot of tears to her. And she's the first woman ever that I had visited with that had alopecia, that had hair loss, and that I could actually sit down and have a direct conversation with. And we talked for probably hours, and I told her all the things that I was feeling about, the confidence and just the being so self conscious about everything. And I told her how I was afraid that my husband wasn't going to love me anymore. My husband was bald, and not having hair didn't bother him. Like he got on in life without hair. And, he told me one time, he said, Sondra, I'm going to love you anyway. Like, what's the big deal? It's just hair. Like, I love you the same. And, honestly, I didn't believe him. I really, in my heart, didn't believe him. And I thought it was mean. I thought he was being mean, that he's like, well, I lost my hair. What's the big deal that you're losing your hair? And I honestly thought he was just being mean to me. And it was through sitting down and visiting with this other woman who had already been down this journey that she helped me to realize. She said, Sondra, that's a symbol of how much he does love you. The fact that he really doesn't, like, he doesn't care about the hair. He cares about you. And it was through that conversation and talking to her that she just said, Sondra, wearing a wig, it's not the end of the world. It's liberating. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And just go buy the dang hair and just rock it. Just go do it. And like that was the turning point for me. And I went back in to see Tracy. And it was the first time that I had actually like crossed that threshold into wearing a full wig hairpiece. And I don't really know why, but I had such a stigma in my mind about the idea of wearing a wig. And, I remember my grandma wore wigs, but it was more for like fashion purposes. Back in her day, it was kind of, you changed up your hairstyle by wearing wigs. A little different than these days where you cut and you color and you get extensions and you do things like that. Back in her day, wearing wigs was very fashionable. So I don't know, I just had this stigma about wigs, but once I crossed that threshold, I realized that, okay, nobody knows that I'm wearing this wig the same way they didn't know that I had all those little funny clip-in hair pieces. Like nobody can tell. And it was such a breakthrough for me. And for the first time in many, many years, I could have really beautiful hair. I mean, I went from having this really mousy, thin, difficult hair to style and work with that I was so self-conscious about. Every time I went outside and the wind would blow, I was like, oh no, like somebody's going to see my patches. And I went from that to just being able to have the most beautiful hair that I could ever imagine having on my head. And some people noticed and some people commented, but a lot of people didn't. But I will tell you, it's taken me, so that's probably been 7 years ago. So I've been wearing full wigs for 7 years. And I just recently came out of a 2.5 year job where probably two people in the company knew that I wore a wig because I've continued to hide it. And it's the thing that I have found is sort of the curse and the challenge, maybe sometimes the blessing, but I find that women dealing with hair loss, like we tend to hide. And we tend to hide behind the hair pieces. But what I discovered is I was starting to hide in various areas of my life. And, when you and I talked previously and we were talking about loss and like not just hair loss, but just loss overall. And after we got off the phone, I thought, okay, well, if I think about my hair loss, like what really have I lost? And I kind of started journaling and I wrote a bunch of these things down. And, probably the biggest thing that I see as the loss that I'm now seeing as not as much of a loss, but as like a change is identity. It's been so much of an identity crisis. And the only way I can describe that is like it's looking in the mirror. And there's a lot of self-help gurus, and I remember Louise Hay is a very famous self-help person that does this exercise around self-love and about looking at yourself in the mirror and looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself, "I love you. You're amazing. You're awesome." Mel Robbins is another, famous author and speaker that I follow, and she's got a book called The 5 Second Rule, and she talks about looking at yourself in the mirror and giving yourself a high five, and how empowering that is, and how it helps you to see yourself and to love yourself and see your own worth. And I realized, really, probably in the last few years, that I struggled to do that because the woman that you see looking at you right now on this screen with my beautiful wig and my makeup on and my microbladed eyebrows, and like this is how I've always presented myself to the world. This is how everybody has always known me. I've always cared an awful lot about my appearance and about, how I present myself. So these last few years of going through complete total hair loss, losing my eyelashes, losing my eyebrows, like all the defining features were gone, just gone. And, I would look at myself in the mirror and like I feel the emotion welling up now because I would look at myself in the mirror and I would just see this like blank template, just this, like, this is not the woman that I always saw myself as. And so I think I kind of stopped looking at myself in the mirror. I mean, like, yes, I would look at myself in the mirror to put my makeup on and do the things, but not looking at yourself in the mirror, not looking into your own eyes, right?
Sondra, I want to. I love. I am writing a whole bunch of notes here. The
I'm
viewers
sorry.
aren't seeing this, but
I'm just like going off
no,
on
no,
this
no,
like,
no.
major
I
monologue.
didn't want to. I did not want to stop you. Like I almost didn't want to stop you there, but we've used. There's so much. There's so many. Gosh, your journey is spectacular. 17 years. I just want to reiterate a few things. 17 years you've been on this journey.
Yeah. Yes.
And for the last 7 years, you stopped wearing toppers, you moved on to wigs, and you've been on this journey of self-reflection, growth internally, and we're going to hear so much more about that. And the whole, I love what you said about the mirror.
Mm.
You said, I started journaling. And before that, you said, hide it. I wanted to hide it. Only two
Hmm.
people in my last job saw or knew that I was wearing hair. And then as you started journaling, things started to reveal itself. Maybe you were writing with, maybe your pen was just flowing and things came
Hmm.
out. And I heard you say, hiding in other areas of my life, identity crisis, and the whole mirror process. I I think, you know, we're here to ease the difficult journey of loss, and it goes beyond hair loss. It's all kinds of loss. And I think many humans, maybe animals too, but many humans, when we look ourselves in the mirror, whether we have hair loss or not, that critical voice, it's not usually a positive one. And I have a mentor. I have several mentors, and one of my mentors, he helps me with self-love, and he's been telling me for like 7 years now, James, when you look at yourself in the mirror every day, I want you to say these three things: I see you, I hear you, and I love you. And I do it sometimes, and it's still hard for me to do that. Going back to the mirror, you've told us about some of the positive things, and I just said something very positive. But just so we can all relate, what are the things that your mind tells you, or what did your mind tell you before you started this practice of being conscious when you look at yourself in the mirror? What were the negative? Were there any negative? If you're okay sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing was just um, not recognizing myself, or not like I would look in the mirror and look, I would see someone that seemed sick or just seemed like a blank canvas, um, unlovable, unpresentable.
What, Sondra? What was the? I'm just curious. Was the voice? Did it like talk to you in first person or third person? Like, how did it sound? Was there a voice? Maybe that's just me.
I think, I don't know that there was a voice. I think it was more like a reluctance to look at myself
Yeah.
because I didn't recognize myself. And this concept of looking at yourself in the mirror and saying I love you, like I really didn't want to have anything to do with that. And when I think of the loss, I think of the identity. I think of loss of confidence, loss of loss of freedom, to not be able to just wake up in the morning and just go for a walk outside without having to like put all the things on, or to not be able to go to the grocery store without feeling like, well, I need to at least paint my eyebrows and put some eyeliner on, and then I need to put something on my head. Like this, always this feeling of covering up, sort of this feeling of, wow, if other people really saw what I really look like. And I think it's only been in the last 6 months, honestly. Honestly, I'll say in the last 6 months, recently, I had the first experience ever that I looked at myself in the mirror with none of the disguises on. And there was something different. I don't know that I can really fully describe it, but there was something different. There was something different inside that said, you're strong, you're courageous, you're brave, you are beautiful. And I feel that the only way that that has come about is I've spent a lot of time watching other women go through their journey of hair loss. Thank goodness for social media.
Sandra, before we go with that,
Okay.
what you just told me, you're strong, you're beautiful, you're courageous. That voice, did you hear that voice 18, 19, 20 years ago when you were the big hair girl, the big hair woman, when you looked in the mirror? Do you remember when you would look in the mirror, what the voice, was there a voice or was there no? Was there anything saying anything like that?
Um, I think I can say very confidently that if I were to go back to my pre hair loss, pre alopecia days, I was a woman who was just running, 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 running. Um, I think success and accomplishment were my way of finding confidence in myself, but I don't think that I had that internal self love. I don't think I even realized at that point in my life that I was lacking it, because I was just on this mission to like prove myself and make my way and succeed and get through life. And so it's interesting because I have two daughters. I have a 17-year-old and a 22-year-old. And my 17-year-old has watched me go through this journey really her entire life. And she has said to me recently, Mom, I think alopecia and your hair loss has made you a better person. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. How is that the case? And she's watched me grow. She's watched me grow into a more kind, compassionate, centered, balanced woman, not the woman who is seeking approval from other people based on my appearance, but the woman who's learning how to find her own internal self love and self approval first. Would I have come to this place where I can look myself in the mirror and say, you're strong, you're beautiful, you're amazing, I love you, without going through the hair loss journey? I don't know. But I know that it has, as much as I feel like it's taken from me, maybe it's taken the identity, the confidence, the feeling of femininity, normalcy, adventure. A lot of things that I could say I've lost these things because of hair loss. But what I've gained is this acceptance and this courage and a new identity. That big girl, hair girl, hadn't learned all of the life lessons now.
So you don't want to go back. You want to be exactly where you're at right now.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. There's a part of me that, would it be nice to wake up and to have hair growing out of my head and to be able to put on mascara because I have natural grown eyelashes, and to see what that be? Yeah, it would be nice to have, those luxuries. But I realized recently I was out on a walk with my husband, and I've gotten more brave. Like, I used to just wear my wig and I would just sweat and just deal with it when it was hot and just suffer. And like, I don't want to suffer anymore. The suffering is over.
Mm.
So now it's more about being comfortable and doing what feels good to me. Now, when I go out on a walk, I might wear a bandana, I might wear a hat. Recently, we were out on a walk and I took the bandana off, I took the hat off. It was really, really hot. I was sweating a lot. And I had this moment where I thought, I don't actually remember what it feels like to have hair growing out of my head. I mean, to have a full head of hair. And if I did have a full head of hair, my hair would probably be all sweaty and pasted to my head, and I'd have to go home and shower and style and blow dry and curl it and spend the hour that I used to spend on my hair. But the beauty is that I can go home and I can still shower and clean up, but then I just put my hair on because I left it at
Mm.
home so that it wouldn't get all sweaty and messed up on my walk. So it's those little things that I think I probably took for granted before, that just the little things that I've learned to sort of evolve into. And I certainly respect that every woman has their individual journey with their hair loss. Some prefer to just let the wigs go and to be bald and beautiful. Others, I still know women who there's nobody in their life that knows that they wear wigs, kind of like, I had been up until the last several months. Um, Everybody's journey is their own. And I really respect that, and recognizing that it really is truly a journey of acceptance. And we're all gonna navigate this journey in different ways and in different time frames.
A journey of acceptance. Yeah, that this is what we're hearing. I'm hearing a lot on all these interviews that the word that's one of the words that's used the most is acceptance.
Mm,
Another word is hiding.
yes.
And hiding and then acceptance. It's like two polar opposites. It's unbelievable. So
Do you want to know the story of how I really know that I've come to acceptance?
yeah, tell us.
Okay. So this is my Greece story that I mentioned to you
Ah,
on
yes.
the on our previous call that I told you I would tell you about. I didn't realize that I had come to this place of acceptance until my daughter helped me become aware that I'm in this place of acceptance. And so the story is that I had this amazing opportunity to go on this yoga retreat to Greece a few months ago. My mother went, and my 17-year-old daughter. It was kind of a graduation present for our daughter. And we prepared for this trip for almost a year and looked forward to it. But I knew that there were going to be certain aspects of this trip that were going to be challenging with respect to the hair loss. Namely, the fact that there were about 23 other women on this retreat, most of whom don't know the story of my hair loss. And I am a yoga teacher. And so this was a yoga retreat, and we were going to be doing a lot of yoga. So I invested in this beautiful yoga wig that has the hair like sewn into a headband. And I had my props for my yoga. Like I knew, okay, going into the yoga, I'm safe. I have the perfect hairpiece that I can wear in yoga, and it's not going to fall off, and nobody's going to know that I, don't have hair underneath here. So I was good to go on the yoga. But then I knew that there were going to be some other experiences that I was going to have to make some decisions about. So, what happens when I go to the spa? Well, I mean, do you really want to wear a wig and sit in a sauna? No, probably not. So, going to the spa, what was I going to do when I went to the spa? And I figured, okay, I bought some pretty scarves. Okay, I'm going to wear some pretty scarves. So I had all my strategies. So then this opportunity came up for us to go on this boat excursion. And it was to go on this yacht where we would have this amazing meal prepared for us. And we were going to have the opportunity to swim in the Aegean Sea and paddleboard and do all these amazing things. And I honestly didn't want to go. Like there were lots of other excursions we could sign up for. And I was pressing for like, let's do a hiking or let's do something else. But my daughter really, really wanted to go on this boating trip for the day. And I thought, this is a chance of a lifetime. I can't pass this up. So we're on the boat, and I have my scarf and my hat and my disguise, and nobody can tell that I left my wig back in the room. But yet there was something just like nudging me. Like I just knew that there was going to come a moment where, okay, what am I going to do if everybody wants to get in and swim or paddleboard, or like, how am I going to navigate this? So the time came that my daughter wanted to get in and paddleboard and swim. And honestly, like this makes me feel so emotional to think about it, because there was a moment sitting there that I almost said, it's okay, honey, you go have fun. And I'm just going to hang out here and watch. But then I thought about it more, and I thought, this is the chance of a lifetime. Do I want to pass this opportunity up? And am I going to look back on this and regret sitting under my hat on the boat and missing this opportunity to swim in the Aegean Sea in Greece with my daughter? Or do I want to let go of my inhibitions and do what feels scary? So what do you think I did?
I think that you followed your intuition.
So I followed my intuition. I scrapped the
Amazing.
hat. I scrapped the scarf. Like I have I have really never gone out in public without my wig ever in my life. And I jumped in the sea. And it was really, really cold, but it was also just really exhilarating at the same time. And like that moment, I will remember that moment forever, forever. And the best part was when we got back to our room that evening and we were reflecting on this amazing, beautiful adventure that we had had that day. And my daughter looked at me and she said, Mom, I'm so glad that you got in and swam with me today. And she said to me, she said, watching you today, because she knew that I was doing something I had never had the courage to do. And she knew how much it took for me. Because I mean, I don't even walk around the house really without something on my head in case her friends or somebody come over. She knew how hard it was for me to make that choice. And she looked at me and she said, Mom, it really shows me how far you've come in your journey of acceptance. And honestly, hearing her say that was such, it was like a reflection back to me. It was this sudden eye opening awareness that I had. And I'm like, acceptance. I haven't fully accepted it until now. And truthfully, like, am I 100% there? Like, if you were to, give it a scale and say, okay, 100%, she can go anywhere without the wig on and be 100% absolutely confident. I'm not at the 100% mark, but I'm a lot closer to that mark than I was when I started this journey 17 years ago.
Wow. Wow. That was phenomenal. And what you are doing for your daughter as well, by the connection. I mean, you're leading by example. You're showing true fearlessness. She knows you and she gets to see you go through this. Yeah, I got two little kids, and God, I hope I get to show courage like that in front of them. What an amazing story. And that was recently. And you answered my question. I wanted to ask you, like, what do you do around the house? Do you wear hair? Because
Yeah.
you're open with your family, and you just told us. And what a liberating moment. So just can you give us a picture? Were you on a boat when you jumped in? And then when you jumped in, did you stay under the water for a bit? Like what was your mind trying to stop you? Like, no, don't do it, don't take the chance. Or was that critical voice there? Or how did you overcome that? Like, what did that look like?
It was a battle in my mind. It definitely was.
Right.
And there was a previous experience that I'd had that I think sort of wired into the decision that I made. And that is that several years ago, I was on a mission trip in Guatemala, and we had an opportunity to do a zip lining excursion. And I was scared. I'm scared of heights. And so I was afraid to get up there and do the zip lining, and, didn't know if I trusted the equipment and all of that. And so there was a group of us that sat out and watched, and there was another group that got up and zip lined. And I remember the feeling of sitting there under the canopy watching all of these other people zipping along through the trees, having this amazing, exhilarating experience. And I was sitting there, and in that moment, I thought, oh, why didn't I do it? Why didn't I do it? And I remember having this feeling, and I went home with this feeling of, Sondra, you're not meant to sit on the sidelines of life. You're just not meant to sit on the sidelines. You're meant to get out there and live life. And so in the moment that I was sitting on that boat, trying to decide whether I get in the ocean and swim with my daughter or sit there and play it safe, that experience came back to me. And I thought, I don't want to go home with that same feeling of having sat on the sidelines and not lived life. And, honestly, I think that is the aggravating thing about what hair loss robs us of, is this freedom, this sense of living your life. And how many things do we sit out, or opportunities do we pass up because we're afraid? And I've come to realize it's not even as much about being afraid of being seen. Like, after we got off the boat, and I thought, well, what was the big deal? Why was I so nervous about having people see me without my hair? Like, what is it? What was stopping me? And I think the biggest part of it is it's the explaining. It's having to confront the people that go, "Oh, wow, you don't have hair." It's the surprise, and it's the reaction, and it's the feeling the need to explain. And do you know, in all honesty, not one single woman that was on that boat trip with us said a word to me. Not one of them asked me. Not one of them needed an explanation. All they did was cheer me on. All they did was cheer me on.
Really?
Yeah. Not one of them said a thing. And when I went into that water and it was cold, I mean, I'm telling you, it was ice bath cold. And I went under the water and it was like my whole body just like, I came up out of the water and I was just screaming. I was just screaming. I might have said a few curse words too because it was just so cold. And here's the crazy thing, like immediately I wanted out. I started swimming for the boat. I'm like, it's too cold. It's too cold. I got to get out. I got to get out. Like I wanted to go back to comfort.
Mm.
And a really crazy thing happened because as I was swimming and I got to the ladder of the boat and I started to climb up, and all of a sudden it was like something came over me, like my nervous system calmed down, something. And I suddenly felt not so cold. Like it was just like my body warmed itself. And I let go of the ladder and I'm like, you know what? I don't need the comfort of the boat. I'm good. Like I'm going to stay in here and swim. I did it. I might as well stay in and swim. And so we swam, we paddleboarded, we did all of the things. And I mean, it's been a turning point for me in this journey, an absolute turning point. Since that day, I've given 2 talks to women's groups in which I did what I did just now and removed my wig in public among other people. And it's just giving me this sense of freedom. Now, at this moment in time, I'm not choosing to go around in life without my hair because I really love my hair. And in fact, I'm going to put my hair back on because I love it so much. But it doesn't have to
And
be my
what?
crutch anymore.
Right. And every, like you said before, everyone's on their own journey, on their own path, and there is no judgment on where anyone's at. You know, the
No.
word hiding is a word that's used often, but it's a strong word, and it could be negative, but it could be just that I'm just good wearing my hair, you
Yeah.
know, or not wearing my hair. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't matter. And I heard you say, I gotta just read these back. A battle in my mind.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Do you remember what the battle? What was the battle going on? Was your mind saying anything, or was it? What did
Yeah.
that
I mean,
sound like?
it's kind of almost like, like having, these two little angels, one on each shoulder, and you've got the one angel over here saying, well, what are people gonna think and what are they gonna say? And you're gonna have to explain and, like it's just safer, just stay on the boat and then nobody will know. And then there's this other little angel over on the other shoulder saying, but this is the chance of a lifetime. And this is your daughter. And do this for your daughter. Like, live life. Like, don't hold back. Just dive in. So the angel on on this shoulder is the angel that won out, fortunately.
Back on that boat, you talked about fear, play it safe, sitting on the sidelines and not living life, freedom, loss of freedom, and how many opportunities do we pass up? And it's almost it. And then I was thinking, as you were jumping into the water off the boat, it's like you literally and figuratively took the great leap. Like you jumped into the unknown. You didn't know it was cold. You didn't know what it was going to like, what other people would say not wearing hair for the first time in public. Like you took the great leap, the great chance, and you left the results and to something else, or it was outside of you. You know, you weren't held back by that anymore, and that was so massive. You know, and I'm sure that great leap you did in that moment actually had reverberating effects in all parts of your life after that. Maybe in how you showed up in relationships with other people that had nothing to do with hair loss or anything like that. I'm sure that something happened inside that, maybe there was a little less fear in other areas of your life. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, I feel like my motto has become feel the fear and do it anyway. And, I used to think that fear was something that was bad and like, I need to get rid of fear. Like, I need to find a way to stop being so fearful. Um, and what I've really come to appreciate recently, and I've read some books about fear, and is that, fear is actually a good thing. Like, number one, I mean, we're designed to, fear is part of our nature to keep us safe, right? It's our safety mechanism if you're running from a tiger or something, but most days we're not all running from tigers. And so this fear that we have inside us like stops us from doing things like what I had the opportunity to do on that boat. And what I've really realized is that fear is there to keep us from discomfort. And that, like, especially like when I got in the water and then I just wanted to swim back to the boat, it was like I had overcome the fear, but I was still seeking the comfort. I wanted to go back to the comfort. And so what I've realized is if you're going to find acceptance in that, if you're going to grow, if you're going to evolve, whatever journey you're on, even, hair loss or whatever journey in life, it's going to take getting uncomfortable, and it's going to take facing the fear and recognizing that it's there and then figuring out how to use it for your advantage and use it to propel you forward as opposed to hold you back. And so I do feel that, for me, authenticity is one of my core values. It's really important for me to present myself authentically to the world, and to have authentic, genuine conversations and relationships. And, it's just important to me. So I think part of the hiding for me always felt so incongruent with authenticity, because I felt like I was showing up as as not the real me. And it goes back to that identity conflict of, okay, I get to choose how I'm going to show up and present myself, but I can also look at myself in the mirror with or without the wig and the makeup and all of the disguises and see what's inside, not just what's on the surface, but really to be able to see and love and appreciate what's on the inside, which is this kind, authentic, genuine, compassionate, amazing person, regardless of whether there's hair or no hair.
I love what you said about fear. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Talking about fear, you were saying the fear on the boats. One of the main things was the need to explain,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna gently just try and I want to kind of see where we can go with this. Why? What's behind the fear of the need to explain?
The fear of the need to explain what's behind that. That's a really, really good question, because as I shared, nobody asked me. Really, there were no questions. So I think it goes back to that authenticity and my need to be authentic. I think it goes back to authenticity and my need to always show up authentically. And so I feel like if I'm not showing up in the same way that I show up in my bathroom mirror in the morning, I'm being fake, or I'm not being true to who I really am. And it's the whole identity crisis. Um, and I think it's also just not wanting to deal with the confrontation, or, maybe it goes back to the fear of what people will think. And like that's one of the driving things behind the hiding, is the fear of what are people going to think, and are they going to make fun of me, or like, am I going to look less than, or um and truthfully, it's an internal, it's my fear. It's my fear of what they think. People aren't thinking about us as much as we think that they are. Will I be accepted? Will people look at me and think of me in the same way? And the fact that nobody asked me after I got out of the water and got back on the boat, and nobody asked me questions about I mean, because sometimes the questions will come and it's like, oh, are you going through treatment? You know, do you have cancer? That's a common question. I mean, I don't know what I'm afraid of with respect to people seeing my baldness. And I think it goes back to the big hair girl days, maybe, of just caring a lot about how and I think the more that I've gone through, presented myself to the world and feeling like if I can't show up as her, that then I need to explain why. The evolution of this journey, the more I'm realizing that I don't need to explain. And the real explaining comes with me. It's more about my acceptance of it as opposed to having to explain it to somebody else.
You mentioned earlier about when you were getting your hair loss years ago, about your husband. You said that you were afraid that he wouldn't love you. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. It's a drastic change in appearance for a woman. There's no doubt. And I think we live in a society that really glorifies long, flowing, beautiful hair. And truthfully, I love hair. I've always loved hair. Um, and I watched my husband lose his hair, and it wasn't alopecia. It was just, male, just the male pattern baldness, and he used to have hair on the sides and none on the top. And then he eventually, um, one day decided to just shave it all off. And it's quite funny now because if my girls look back at older pictures of us when he had hair, they laugh. They think he looks funny with hair. And again, it's identity, right? I mean, we've become accustomed to his identity without hair, and we love him and we accept him. So I don't know what it was in my mind that I felt like, we loved and accepted him when he went through his hair loss, and it didn't change, how I felt about him or loved him. So why did I think that what I really, me losing my hair would change how he loved and felt about me? And realized is when he said to me, oh, it's just hair. Like, I've lost all of mine. What's the big deal if you lose yours too? And I thought he was being so mean. But then I realized, like, he really meant it. Like, it really isn't a big deal to him. Like, he really, but it took someone else, like, outside of my head, pointing that out to me to help me realize and make the observation that, you know what? And I think that maybe that's part of this, is that we get so stuck in our heads with our own stories. We formulate these stories around our hair loss journey. What are people going to think? My husband's going to love me less. I'm not as feminine as I used to be. I can't go work out at the gym because, I'm bald. I can't teach yoga because my hair will fall off. Like, we formulate all these stories in our minds and all of the what ifs, and they're not even true. They're just stories. They're just stories. So I guess what I'm realizing, even maybe in this moment, is it's less about convincing other people and explaining to other people, and more about changing the stories that I'm telling myself. It's less about the stories I tell the other people, and it's more about the stories I tell myself. That was just a revelation that I just had in this moment.
Wow.
To you, James.
The something similar I've heard is the thoughts in my mind aren't true. A lot of them are not true. So, some of the good ones are true,
Yeah.
but a lot of them are it's me being conscious and seeing what's being said. Is it real? Is it true? And and what you did with your husband, you got honest with your husband. You got honest with all those people on the boat, and vulnerable, truly vulnerable. Brené Brown, she talks about there's so much strength in vulnerability, and she's got all these books and talks
Oh,
about it. And she
I
always talks
love
about her
Brene Brown.
husband, and she's awesome. She
Yes.
talks about all these stories. A lot of her messages are
I've
through
read every single
stories.
one of her books, every single one
Oh, you
of
have?
them. Oh, every single one of them. The Power of Vulnerability. Yeah.
And it's true, because I, it, I've been in, I've got a lot of internal journeys and things I'm still on and going through, not to do with hair loss, but just internal growth. And I've been in groups and I've said things that true honesty. And my thought was, no one's going to like me if I say this. What are people going to think? And times where I have taken that leap, also with my wife, getting real honest about things. Oh, she's not going to love me, if I say this.
Hmm.
It's incredible. The exact opposite would happen. It would actually create further attraction, further connection, but without getting honest to get that, it
Yeah.
doesn't work. I can't. um this doesn't work to try and get things from honesty. It's just, that was the surprise. What Brene Brown said was the power of vulnerability. That whereas maybe I might be wearing these masks and trying to get people's approval, trying to get people to like me by saying a certain thing, superficial things, but really the power and connection is just getting true and honest when it's safe and when it's right with the right people, of course. But I was just blown away by that.
Yeah. It's about the power of vulnerability and how, we don't want other people to see us as vulnerable. And yet what people most want to see in us is our vulnerability. Like they want to see us be real. They want to know the real story. Another favorite expression of mine, and I don't know who has said this expression, but it's really stuck with me, and I have to remind myself of this often, is that what other people think of me is none of my business, which is true, right? It's what they're
Yes.
thinking is doesn't concern me. It's their thoughts. But what does concern me and what should concern me and what I've learned to get in check with is what I think about me is my business. And that's what matters more than what anybody else thinks. And it can seem really trite to say that. Many people have said, "Oh, Sondra, you know, hair, no hair, you're so beautiful. You're beautiful on the inside." And while people mean well saying that, and it is a very wonderful compliment, and again, check the stories, right? Because I can tell myself an internal story of, well, they don't really understand how hard it is, and how dare they say that. But the truth is, people don't know what to say. And so they're trying to say something that's comforting. But the real truth is, I am beautiful on the inside. It's just like my husband saying, I love you whether you have hair or not. And when people say you're beautiful on the inside, like they really mean it.